Hey everyone, it's Caitlin. What I mainly wanted to talk about today is how to get to know a new yarn when you don't have it in front of you to physically look at, but you're shopping virtually. Like I mentioned, I work remotely, so I'm often in this position when something new comes into the Woolly Thistle, and I thought that might be the case for most of you. So I have a couple of pieces of advice for what I look for online, and then I have an example of how I've done that recently with a new yarn we've gotten. So first of all, what I would suggest is if you hear about a new yarn that the Woolly Thistle has brought in, we often talk about it on a Shopcast. So you might be able to search our YouTube channel and look for Corinne and Maggie holding up a beautiful basket of the new yarn. This is a good way to see the colors on screen and hear their description of them. Also go to our product page, which will have quite a bit of descriptive information about the yarn. It will tell you the fiber content, the general category of weight of yarn that it falls into, whether it's 50, 100 gram, 25 gram skeins, the full yardage. A lot of times we're able to give you the gauge of like the suggested gauge range for using that yarn and what it would like to knit up as. And what else? The origin of it, story behind the mill, all that kind of stuff. You can see photos of all the different colors. Sometimes there'll be photos of several colors together to kind of give you an extra frame of reference. And then I also, when I'm trying to get to know a new yarn, I also like to look at it on Ravelry. There's usually a page on Ravelry for each yarn. So you could search the name of that particular yarn. You can see what pattern suggestions there are for that yarn. Sometimes they will be just the most popular designs on Ravelry, not necessarily designed for that yarn, but a lot of people have used it in their projects. So you can go and click and click and click and find all kinds of examples of that yarn in actual projects. Also, if you click on the project tab within that yarn page, you can look at a whole bunch of information on the side where it says like needle type. If you do an advanced search of the projects people have made with that yarn, you can see the most commonly used needle size. You can get an idea of how people are choosing to use this yarn, if they tend to use it in shawls or garments, summery projects, color work, stripes, textures, and see how that yarn tends to do well. There's just so much information there. So I did this recently with a yarn that we've just gotten in. It is Pickles Summer Wool, and yeah, we've just gotten our first shipment, and it's done so well that we're going to be getting another shipment, and yeah, so maybe some of you already have it in your stash. If that's the case, let us know what you thought of it in the comments and maybe what plan you have for it. But this yarn caught my attention. It's the time of year where I like to knit more summery things, and this yarn being 55% merino lamb's wool, 45% cotton, sounded like it would be well suited for more summery things. If you want more information about choosing summery yarns or transitional season yarns, Kelsey talked a lot about this on the previous Shopcast 252, so go check that out. She has a lot more knowledge on that to share with you. This is so I went to the Pickles yarn product page on our website, and I was looking. It's listed as a sport weight. The gauge is what is curious to me. It is listed as having a appropriate gauge range of 18 stitches to 4 inches up to 22 stitches for 4 inches. Now I think of 18 stitches as kind of the default worsted weight gauge, and I think of 22 stitches as the default DK weight gauge. This being a sport weight yarn makes me think that maybe it is a little bit on the thicker side of sport weight if it's comfortable in this range. I'm guessing it's the wool content that does give it that range because it has a little bit of a fluff possibility. A full cotton yarn wouldn't tend to really fill in gaps in gauge very well. So I was thinking of whether there are any yarns that I already have in my stash that would be similar to this, so I could hold it and get a sense for how it might feel. The closest one that I could think of is Sauna by Wool Dreamers. This is different actually than Pickles, even though it's a very similar fiber content, half wool, half cotton. This is a fingering weight yarn, 2-ply, and woolen spun. Pickles is, I believe, 3 plies. It is called a sport weight yarn, and it is worsted spun. So you're gonna see, even if you just zoom in on this yarn compared to zooming in on the Pickles yarn, this is gonna have more fuzz. Pickles is going to be smoother. So yeah, that had me sort of trying to start to brainstorm. I want to try out the Pickles yarn. How do I find a pattern to kind of at least give me an idea of what I might want to make with this? I try to have an idea in mind before I buy a yarn, what it's going to become, so I make sure I can buy the right amount. But I don't always know if the pattern I've intended is going to end up agreeing with the yarn. So I try to have a couple of different ideas and plans, so I can pivot if I need to, but still have enough yarn. The Pickles yarn comes in, we have 8 really beautiful colors, and the one that stood out to me for some reason was the red, the kind of poppy red, which made me think of the Poppy Tea by PetiteKnit. It's a summery looking, very simple stockinette pullover with sleeves that are not quite elbow length. And I thought that this yarn having half cotton content would be good in sort of a tea style. That yarn calls for a gauge of 23 stitches over 4 inches, which is a little bit tighter, denser than the gauge recommended on the Pickles yarn description. And that had me questioning, do I really want a summer garment that has a tighter gauge than suggested? So I was kind of questioning my choice, and also like how much yarn I would need if I did go with something at that gauge. Then I was reminded that there's also a cardigan version of it. It looks like a cardigan of the Poppy Tea. It's called the Maggie cardigan, also by PetiteKnit. So I looked over there, and it's also a gauge of 23 stitches over 4 inches. I was also reminded there's a beautiful new pattern coming out by Sari Nordland in her new book, Summer Knits. We have a pre-order for that right now. It's actually going to be releasing quite soon, called the Series Cardigan. And so I looked that one up, and that is a gauge of 21 stitches over 4 inches. It's a beautiful cardigan with some lace panels on the front. And the yarn that pattern calls for is a linen and cotton blend, I think, or linen and silk blend. So I was poking around to see on the Series Cardigan page who has made this and what yarns did they use. Did anybody use a woollier yarn? How did it look? I zoomed in on the texture of the front of the cardigan to see if I liked the look of it in a like drapier, all cellulose fiber yarn, and I think it would actually lend itself well to a woollier yarn. So I'm kind of thinking of buying Pickles as if I'm going to make the Series Cardigan, maybe erring on the side of getting a little extra yarn just in case I do decide to go with something either in a denser gauge or a little bit longer sleeves, a little bit more, button band or something that needs some extra yarn. And yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about at least the tentative plans there. So yeah, I hope that helps you if you're also contemplating buying a new yarn and not quite sure what it's going to become yet. And I'll just leave one final tip, which is if you're not quite committed to a project in a new yarn, you don't have to buy it all in one go. You can just throw a skein into your other order coming from the Woolly Thistle and give it a try. Think of the skein as kind of your swatching, get to know you opportunity. If it does happen to work out, great, and there's still more of the same dye lot, you can order more and end up being able to use it all. But Doesn't hurt to throw in a skein just to play with too and get to know your yarn that way. So yeah, I think that's all I have for you this time. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.